is back at it again, bashing one of the top names in the wrestling business. There's been a lot of people that he's bashed over the years. There's been Goldberg, or Bill Goldberg as he always calls him, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo. There's been quite a few, but now he's back at it with having a pop at Triple H. But I love this, and because there's a lot of stuff when it comes to what Bret Hart says regarding certain people, like maybe, well, I would say especially Triple H, that I pretty much agree with him on almost everything he has to say about Paul Levesque. So when I see these things here that he was saying, Triple H is a phony who never earned it, as he just married the boss's daughter. That does kind of, that I've got to say, that kind of bit that does make me smile. So Bret Hart, what it is right now, he's doing one of these tours, the gigs, the inside the ropes shows that Kenny McIntosh puts on. And so there was a show in Manchester, United Kingdom. So I think he's been going around Europe. And Bret, well, fans adored him in Europe, and Bret loved going to Europe. He was in I believe he was in Germany. He was like at some Bundesliga game, and then there was something else as well where he was like holding up a football strip for Charlton Athletic Football Club, which was quite interesting. So he's enjoying his time, here in the UK and Europe overall. So he spoke his mind about Triple H. So with this, you know what? Actually, let's maybe just get into this clip right away, because I think it's better just to react to it kind of like naturally and hear what he says on this. So there's a clip here. So Bret Hart blasts Triple H. So let's just play this right now and get into this.
I'm not sure where I stand with Triple H. Just being honest, I never rated him. Everything he's done, everything he's created, it's all stuff that he wrote out for himself. I wish I could have sat back in 1992
Like Hogan, right?
and said, well, this is what I'm going to do for the next 10 years. I'm going to win every title, and I'm going to be champion 55 times. Or 500 times. I think Triple H is a phony, like in the sense that he never earned it, he never deserved it. He just married the boss's daughter. Let me just say this, I wish he'd been in the dressing room when I knocked Vince out.
Yeah, he was too afraid.
I wish
standing outside though.
I wish he was in the dressing room.
Getting bitched out by Bret's wife at the time.
Stephanie anymore. Or, might not have ever happened. There was so much anger, and Triple H was such a slime ball back in 1997. He was a guy that I had very little respect for. Never really rated him. I don't know. You guys tell me. There's not one match that I ever watched of Triple H's with anybody that I ever thought was like, oh, that's a great match. I never ever wanted to wrestle him. I always look at every wrestler and go, I could do this.
He would just lay into him,
I
right?
could do this with that guy. But with Triple H, it was always like just a match. Nothing special ever came to my mind.
There we go. There we go. He doesn't hold back, right? He never does mince his words, does he, Bret Hart? So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm with Bret on a lot of this stuff, because it's like, yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it's like, I can remember when Triple H Bret Hart did, it was an off the record interview with Michael Landsberg maybe 20 plus years ago, and and he was quite bitter and angry and hurt about all that at the time. And I remember him saying that, Triple H was just a sneaky guy. He was never one of the boys. And Triple H was never truly one of the boys. He can put on that front like he does, and like he cares about the boys, the main guys, the guys in general who are in the locker room, the other wrestlers. But I think Triple H, all he ever truly cared about was really, one, himself and his, selfish ulterior motives, and the guys that he hung around specifically in the clique: Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Sean Waltman. That's all he ever really cared about. And Triple H, no doubt, was very close, tight, with Shawn Michaels. And, when Shawn Michaels had, he had bad blood there with Bret, Triple H was always going to stand by his guy, his best friend. Some might say that that's noble, that's understandable. But I think it's more than that, because I can understand Bret. It all goes back to the Montreal Screwjob, and when they're in the meetings talking about this discussion, discussing what's the finish, what's going to happen, and Triple H more or less said, this is what he said in a documentary, I remember: "Fuck that prick, let's do business for him." It was something along those lines. And so Bret, that will always probably be in the forefront of Bret's mind. I mean, in some respects, probably Bret, and I think this is probably true, Bret's probably made peace more with Shawn Michaels than he has with Triple H. He really does lay into Triple H. And I mean, what do you really think about it? When you really think about it with Triple H, right? Did he actually have that many great matches, like classics, like beyond the matches with the Undertaker, right? Like the one, like the WrestleMania, was it 28 Hell in a Cell? I mean, when you really think about it, would you say, oh, Triple H, he's had like a classic match that's like an all-time great match? When you really think about it, like he didn't really, right? Um, what he did, I mean, most people would say Hogan Rock, like Hogan Rock or Michael's Taker from WrestleMania 25. They're like the two top WrestleMania matches. I don't even know Triple H with his matches would they even make like a top 10 list? Would they? I don't know, but yeah, so I can understand a lot with what Brett says. Where I'm not with Brett is that I think you've just got to kind of let some of this shit go. It's not good carrying on to these kind of grudges, and he still goes on about Goldberg and Eric Bischoff. I think in a way he's got to let some of that go. But then Brett's just, I guess he just says says it like it is, says it how he feels. But yeah, I mean, he says that he was a guy that he had very little respect for. I could, yeah, totally. I mean, he was probably because Triple H maybe had the right attitude about the business and was a pretty decent hand in the ring. You would kind of have a bit of respect for him, but I think based on how he's operated in his life and his career, screwed over a lot of people. A lot of people, lives you could say, were maybe never recovered from a lot of the kind of like dark shit, the political shit that he got involved in, along with the clique too. Um, yeah, man, I can understand Brett feeling a certain way. I mean, Triple H, going back to the clique days, maybe Triple H wasn't like the bad guy in the clique. You're talking like when it was all five of them, because he was just like a mid card guy. But these are the guys that like they wanted to like starve Carl Coet, right? The guy that was doing like the pirate gimmick. There was a bit of an issue there in Montreal about because he didn't want to do the job because that was his hometown or whatever. And they were like, oh yeah, let's call Vince McMahon and have him and get him to starve him for 2 years. They're pretty fucking dark and calculated, these guys. Oh, they were at the time anyway. But does that ever change? Does the leopard ever truly change its spots? I don't really think so. And I think it was Shane Douglas that told that story of being in a room with them, a hotel room, where they were discussing these things about that. And that was the whole thing about, oh, we'll have Vince McMahon starve him for 2 years. Pretty fucked up shit, man. And I think when those are the people that you hang around with, they say you're the sum of the people, like the five people you surround yourself with. He's surrounded like with four guys there in the clique. Those kind of like backstabbing type ways, that's going to rub off on you. Maybe he was always kind of like that, even from a young age, Paul. I don't know. But, maybe this isn't the best person to like kind of source and, but I remember, was it Tommy Sitch, Sonny, told a story like they came in at the very same time as Triple H did when he was doing the Hunter Hearst Helmsley gimmick. This was after, like the day after, I think, WrestleMania 11, they debuted. And they're maybe just getting like an introductory thing round, with WWE and meeting people. And as he's there, he's like saying to them, or I don't know, just to her, maybe her, and it was Chris Candido, he's like, I'm going to own this place one day. I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to run this place. And that's what he said. And she gave that interview. I think she even gave that interview maybe even before he got in power and became the CEO. Maybe when he was married to the boss's daughter, Steph. But yeah, man. I mean, yeah, if he doesn't marry her, then shit. Where would he have been at? You know what I mean? And he can. There's still time for him. He could fall. He could fall hard. There could be some stuff that comes out there about him. Maybe there's stuff there about NDAs with him, like just like what Vince McMahon, his father had with Janelle Grant. Who knows? But karma is a motherfucker, and maybe one day it's gonna catch Triple H. Maybe, just maybe, it will. He's very careful. You know what I mean? He's not sloppy. So, it's one of those things where people know he ain't going nowhere. That's why guys like Punk ultimately made peace with him, and Warrior in a way made peace with him. Some other guys made peace with him because they know he ain't going nowhere. So it's maybe going to take a little bit longer for Triple H. But a guy like Bret Hart, who just has no fucks, and does the whole eye roll thing with Steve Austin as Triple H is going over, like shaking their hand at the top of the entranceway with that whole Hall of Fame thing at WrestleMania. Bret knows what Triple H is like. He knows the kind of little shit that he pulls in the games, and he doesn't take to him. He doesn't like that, and I'm not a fan of people like that either. I know that type. So I can definitely understand where Bret's coming from. So Bret saying what he said about Triple H inside the rope show. Yeah, I popped for a lot of the comments he made because they're pretty much on the money. So yeah, just keep being you, Bret. Keep doing your thing. Maybe let some of the past go. Maybe come on, like the shit with Goldberg. That's dead and buried now. Let that go. But I agree with a lot of what Bret Hart has to say about a lot of things. With people and the way the business is today. But yeah. But when it comes to people bashing Triple H, I'm always here for that, because he definitely deserves it, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. And there we go, guys. So that's another video, but feel free to hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts were on this, with the comments that Bret made about Triple H. But if you want to watch a previous video that I did on this with Bret when he got into the stuff with the screw job, talking about Shawn Michaels and Triple H. If you click on the top left there, you'll be able to check out that video there. It's a bit more in depth, and I reacted to another video clip from another Inside the Ropes show. But that's me for now, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.